Okay, so I thought we'd just take the opportunity to, for those of you who don't know the High Frequency Word Project, to talk you through it. It's available from Amazon and there are 130 words in it. So let me just show a few things. This page, Rebecca.
All of the wonderful words that people had to say about our book. We're so grateful for that.
Very excited with people like Wiley Blevins, Jess Safaris, Doug Harper, David Crystal, Pete Bowers talking about our book. Now, you can see that it's set out into four main sections. So we'll just give you a quick overview of each section. So the first one.
The what and the why. So basically, the background information that you would want to know to understand how our English orthography works. And this is the idea that we're going beyond just simple phonics because many of these words people think are irregular. But if you understand a bit more about the background of English, turns out they're not irregular. And so we explain the role of phonology, but also morphology, etymology, and the interrelationship of those and why all of those are so important. And we also have a little bit about, oh, yes, so we talk about how we chose our word list, what are high frequency words anyway, what are the words that we put in this book and why are they important? And
And we know that sometimes people will look at that and go, oh, that's a lot of reading. It's all really interesting, we would have to say. We spent a long time researching and writing it. However, we did a couple of things to help busy teachers. Oh, look, I'm all blurry because the book's there. Well, that's fine. At the top, there is just some bullet points of what's this section about. And then we put these little boxes to say, hey, this is really important information. So if you're someone who is just wanting to skim, that's going to be really helpful. Plus the boxes that point out the things that are very important, such as sometimes graphemes don't represent a phoneme in a word. Bang.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
such an essential little tidbit of knowledge to know when you're teaching these words.
and finishing up with, we're not learning these words for the sake of learning these words. We want students to be able to read and spell them with automaticity. Okay, so then our next section is da,
The
da,
exciting
da.
section, all of the words. This is 130 bite-sized lessons for you that you can just take and use. And we have the words listed both in alphabetical order, and we've arranged them originally in our first edition in study sets. We created an order, a scope and sequence, if you will, because people always want to know how should I teach them. And we did create those with intentionality, and it's not necessarily the easiest to the hardest, but there is a flow that does follow that. Within each study set, though, we grouped words that share something in common. Maybe they share an original history, they share kind of a core meaning, they share a spelling pattern, a graphemic pattern. So we're interested in helping students learn these words by making connections with other words, not just 130 words all in isolation. So that's the
And that
arrangement of
that
those.
said, that in terms of they're not easiest to hardest, but the first set are the most frequently used words, the words that are used with highest frequency, plus a couple of others that we put in there. We would often like to tell people that he shows up with very high frequency in writing and she not as much, but we put she in that first list and they because we feel that students deserve to know how to read and spell those three words. And
Exactly.
so then you can see, let's talk about how we've set out the words.
Yeah, each entry for a word contains at the top sample sentences and phrases because it's very important that we want to use these words in meaningful context to anchor the meaning and help our students either understand or verify that they understand and probably teach them some new usages that they are not as familiar with yet. Maybe they understand one way a word is used, but it turns out a lot of these function words are used in many different ways and some even kind of metaphorically in phrases. So we start with that present day meaning, very quick, and it's all there for you. You can just read it right out of the lesson.
And I
After,
think it's important. Can I just interrupt there to
yeah,
say that we didn't say how each of these words are being used, but we chose sentences that use the word in a different sense or a different function. And so you've got a range there. It's not just three examples of the word being used, just with some different words in a sentence being used the same way, such as got, uh, gotcha. It is like an exclamation. Have you got a minute? I have got to get ready for the party. I got what you were saying, but I still can't work it out. I got what you were saying, right? That's kind of different. So we're giving you different examples. Kids can come up with some, you've got some there for you. Okay, and now the next section, with the next two sections are both about anchoring the meaning. So all of these top sections are about you anchoring the meaning with the students. So we've got sentences, phrases, tying down the meaning, the tail of the word, and then we like to show how the word, if there are any relatives in the immediate family, if there are cousins, so different base but broader family, or some foils that you might like to use that have the same letters but are nothing to do with it. So this part is about anchoring the meaning, and then
We have to look into the letters because we need to analyze the spelling of the word and we want to feel out for the phonemes, map them to the graphemes, box the base, tap, spell, and practice. But sometimes we're surprised by the spelling. So, both in the Tell the Tale, which is kind of our showcase piece of what we don't see out in the world of other people doing, and this look into the letters sections, which is more of the phonics, the phonology, we explain why words are spelled the way they are so that you can understand if you're not sure yet, like we weren't sure about many of these words. And then you could just tell this little story to your students. And then all of a sudden, these words make sense. So we're moving from meaning through some background history into the practicality of just mapping those phonemes and graphemes, analyzing that word, and then putting that knowledge into practice so that students become automatic with both reading and writing those words.
And many of you, I don't know many of you, but some of you will have our study booklets, which we still have, and we've added a study booklet 6 for the new words that we have. The study booklets are the worksheets for the students, and that was our first edition. Really, was making those study booklets. They're still, I think, amazingly helpful for the students. They've got reviews in them, as well as work for each word. But the thing that was tricky about the study booklets was we had to keep on going, oh, which booklet is it in? I want that word. The thing that I love about this is they're in alphabetical order, so I can just grab it and find the word that if I want to look up the word finally or the word favorite, I can find it really quickly, and I use that a lot.
It's
Okay, so
so
that's our section
useful.
number two, which is, very
The
big,
bulk
all
of the
about
book.
words. Yes, the
Yeah.
bulk of the book. And then we do have a few little extra bits at the end where we thought there were some additional notes that really, some things really needed explaining, like what is Proto-Indo-European? What about those R influenced vowels? What about that UGH? And so on. Um, so now let me then go to the next section, which is the teaching plan. So we've got the information about why, we've got the words, but now we included a section about, well, how might you go about teaching these in your class?
Yeah, we wanted to give teachers an easy to remember scheme so that you felt like, okay, I have all this information. What do I do with it? Three words to remember: anchor, analyze, practice. So we anchor the meaning like we showed you with those top sections, both present day meaning and the historical meaning. We analyze the word, we look at its structure, we look at its phonemes and graphemes, if it's a base or if it's a base with something else. And then we must have our students practice. So we offer you games and activities as well throughout the book with some suggestions because we can't just do one 15-minute lesson and expect students to have that. They need this repeated and spiraled practice to come back months later and retrieve those words over and over to make them really automatic. And we
And
also,
I think I'm just, mention this section here where we
yeah,
compiled words because you might want to use our study set suggestions for or looking at these words in a particular year level for deep dive. But you also do lots of consolidated practice where we're using all of the words and we're practicing them. And you want to just group them so they're not random. So we made these lists of if you want to look at all of the words in our chart that in our list that have, an A grapheme or ones that have an OW or ones that have a short, short vowel sound, which of course varies a little bit with accents, but it gives you lists of them. We did them with like nouns and which ones can be used as nouns or verbs or conjunctions. And so that I think is pretty helpful. If you're just looking at the set six words, then we do have some nice lists there about which ones do we often reduce the vowel to a schwa sound. I think
That's
you
why they're
mentioned
so
the
hard to
activities and
spell.
games. So and there's assessment in there as
Yeah.
well. And so that's, pages that you can just print and we put them on our website as well. So you can download them as a PDF so that the student and teacher sheets for assessing. And then let me look through. Oh, yes, because we've got all those dictations for you. So the words are in sentences. And for those of you who want to give students their own, hook them up to a computer and have them hear the dictation, Rebecca has recorded all of those and they're available on our website so that you can send some children off and say, you spell the words, listen to the sentences. It doesn't have to be everyone in the class. We have some printable resources at the back, like you said, with games, the words on cards that you can use, and our very
Jam-packed book.
jam-packed, our very final section is just a couple of pages about resources that we used and that you can use for further study, and a glossary in case you keep on going, well, what does that word mean? Again, we have a nice glossary.
Phoneme, what's grapheme?
And
Yep.
then all the references that we used. So, wow, exactly. We think it's great. Lots of people do because it's being used pretty widely. If you would like a set for your school, we do obviously a discounted price for schools that are purchasing multiple copies. So just contact us. Otherwise, look on the highfrequencywordproject.com to find information about it.
Yep, the hfwproject.com and ask us if you have any questions.
Exactly. And I'd show you study booklet 6, but I left it somewhere and don't have it in front of me for those of you who don't know it. But the new study booklet has 4 pages for each word because they're really complex words and just so many different activities that you can build, weeks worth of lessons from those.
That one's a lot of fun.
Thanks, everyone.